Hello there everyone, welcome back to another Gate Ruler video. In today's discussion I'm going to be talking about all of the legendaries that are available at low rarity. So, low rarity. There is one exception, which is a secret rare legendary, which is, as far as we know, available in 1 in 4 cases. That is 1 per master case. And it is only available in the main booster set, not the high rarity pack. I'm not going to talk about that for now. I really don't like there being an exclusive card at that level of rarity, and whilst it's not particularly good, and frankly I can't really think of a scenario where you would actually want to be playing it at the moment, I'm just going to pretend it doesn't exist because for 99% of people, I imagine you're not going to want to go out there and drop, I think it's currently 10 to 14,000 yen on one legendary. Everything else is far more reasonable, between 1 and 2,000 yen or coming in a starter deck. So, you know, that's the sort of, that's okay. That is a perfectly fine card price for a one-off card to be at. I'm not going to talk about Hellfire of Malvarius more than I already have. I'm not going to discuss it any further in this video. I just wanted to let you know that it exists. I'm aware it exists, and I don't like that it exists. Anyway, the basically only real problem I have with Gate Ruler aside, let's talk about these legendaries. So I'm basically going to go through these and I'm going to talk through my opinions on them, and then I'm going to rank my top 3. Because that's probably what I've put in the title and thumbnail, and you know, clickbait works, so I'm going to go ahead and not clickbait you too badly. Let's get started with the discussion. We're starting with Captain Liberty, and this is a very, very powerful legendary. So in terms of the attributes, having military is reasonably relevant, can be useful. It is a 5/4/2. And it has Defender, and its ability is to banish 3 cards with counter from your cemetery to special summon this from your hand or cemetery. So this is a very, very strong card. The amount of decks it doesn't fit into are few and far between. The biggest risk of this card is you getting it in damage, and that's not even the worst situation really, because if you were playing this in, for example, Abyssal Summon, you can heal it out of the damage and be able to play it after that. The particular strength of this card is in Knight, because you are able to, well, it's equally good to be honest in Apprentice, but in Knight particularly because of energy. So here you're able to max out your energy, use both your normal summons, and still summon this from your discard, from your graveyard, and get another body on board, another Defender body on board, I might add, which is certainly very valuable. Though, of course, in Apprentice, equally valuable. This is essentially like having a 3rd card every single turn to play if you're seeing enough counters, which is not unlikely to be able to play this 2-3 turns in a row. Not necessarily unlikely. Yes, very, very strong card. Now, in terms of its revivability, then you've got to factor in its stats as well. A 5/4/2, 4 HP is not quite, if this was a 5/5/2, I think it'd probably be a bit too good, because 5 HP is one of those very annoying thresholds to break over. At 4 HP, this is going to be able to be removed by a lot of level 0 vanillas, a lot of level 1s, and pretty much all level 2s. Then certainly every level 3. Besides Invasion Emperor, but we'll talk about that later. Yes, this is a very, very strong card. 5 attack as well means it's hitting a solid threshold there, and I think I've said this is a very strong card enough. I think I've made that point. This is very good. If I were to rate these legendaries on a scale from 1 star to 5 star, I would say as cards they're pretty much all at the at the 4 to 5 star rate anyway. They're like all at the top end anyway. But as a legendary, I would say this is a 5 star. This is definitely one of the better ones. This is very, very powerful. You can recur it is sort of some of its major value. And yeah, like this is a card that you're going to be able to keep getting value out of, and it's very, very versatile. Okay, let's talk about the second legendary for Atlas, and that is WinWin. WinWin is possibly my favourite card in the game because it has the goat Midas on it, and I don't know if you've noticed, but at the end card you will see. I'm rather a big fan of Midas. Yeah, it's got Midas on it, and it's just a very good card. So this is normal timing. You draw one, and both you and your opponent can choose up 2 of their energy and activate them. So this is pretty much staple in Knight, to be honest. This is always good. There is no situation when this is bad. As a Knight player, the worst case of this card is it just filters 1. That's the absolute worst case scenario. The odds of your opponent getting a benefit on this, I think, are reasonably low. Certainly, from my testing as far as competitive decks go, there are not that many Knight decks that I see in the top tier. So, with that in mind, this is actually not going to be a benefit for your opponent a lot of the time. And if you were to assume all decks were played, all set 1 rulers were played with an equal probability, then about 70% of the time your opponent is getting absolutely no benefit from this. And even in the scenarios when your opponent is getting a benefit from this, well, you have to consider that a majority of the time your opponent is not going to be banking on you having a win-win. It's possible they may set a card as a bait or something that they are not able to play, and this may let them play that card, but more often than not they would not do that because they risk losing the card to some form of removal and not being able to use it. Which obviously, you know, if your opponent has 1 energy and is going to set a zap, 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 you know, and that you happen to play a win-win that turn, and they get to use it, more power to them. That's a risk I think is really not worth taking, because equally I could just remove that set and you're suddenly having a very, very bad time. So this is a very, very strong legendary, very, very generically useful. Again, I think not as good as Captain Liberty, because this is a one-time use kind of thing. You're not able to heal it out of damage to get more use out of it. You're not able to recur it. It's not constantly giving you value. But it is going to give you one potentially quite explosive turn, and that can be enough to swing the game in your favour. Definitely a very strong card. Let's move on to Wonderverse now. And these are very much drive focused, so think Highlander and Apprentice for these ones. So here we've got Space Ninja Ginja. I don't know how you meant to pronounce that. So relevant typing here, 2 very relevant typings. 1 is Crime Naught, 2 is Robo. Highly relevant typing. It is a 5/5/2, so it's got that 5 HP threshold I mentioned, which is very annoying to hit over. You can't just smash over it with an Apprentice or a Highlander ruler. And, you know, generally speaking, 5 attack on a unit is not the most common. Its overdrive is Cosmic Slash. Choose 1 enemy set card and destroy it. If it destroys Space Arthur, deal 3 to your opponent. Now, the odds of you actually burning 3 to your opponent by destroying a Space Arthur are pretty much non-existent. So don't bother thinking that's going to happen. But being able to just destroy a set is valuable. That set, more often than not, is going to be something like a reduced damage to 0. That's probably the most common. And if you remove that, that can potentially just mean game then and there. So removing sets is a powerful effect. Don't sleep on that. Combined with the fact that this has 2 very relevant typings, Crime Naught for Malevolous Prime synergy, meaning you're going to be able to just chuck this into a Malevolous Prime's soul, and more valuably, I think, Robo, meaning you're going to be able to activate something like Emergency Recombination or Emergency Combination with this card on the field, is very, very, very powerful. Yeah, I would say this is one of the weaker legendaries. I would say, like, as a legendary, it's like more of a 3-star kind of rating. But as a card, it's like, if I could play 4 of this, I probably would play 4 of this. Its weakness is only because the legendary slot is obviously, by nature of being the legendary slot, highly, highly competitive. It's not a weak card, it's just, can I justify the legendary space on this? And that's sort of a question you're going to have to answer for yourself, depending on the deck. Next, we've got Invasion Emperor, and I think this was a card I kind of underrated when I first looked at it, because I was expecting it was going to steal anything. So what it does is level 3, counter and overdrive, so it is taking up a counter space. Crime Naught typing, so relevant there. It is a 2/1/1, and the counter is UC overdrive. The overdrive is choose 1 level 2 or lower enemy unit and take control of it. Now, it doesn't say for how long, and my reading of this would mean until the end of the game you take control of it. When is that relevant? Rarely, but for example, steal your opponent's Captain Liberty, now you've got a Captain Liberty. For example, highly, highly unlikely to actually happen. Not 100% sure if that's how it works. If it's for the turn, the card is pretty much just as good. If not for the turn, if it's for until the card leaves the field, it's because that would be the shortest amount of time going by the reading off this. Still super good. I'm just putting it out there. I don't think it's probably been clarified, but I'm not sure. I'll leave a comment if I find out. But anyway, this is very, very powerful. If you hit this on a counter check, more likely than not, it's going to disrupt your opponent's attack phase. And even if it doesn't disrupt your opponent's attack phase, if you get it on the last possible counter check, you can steal something in the defensive zone or steal a very powerful beta that they're using that's level 2. Also, if you get this on your overdrive, it's sort of the same kind of benefit. This is just really, really powerful. You get this unit as well. It's just like it's a one strike beat stick. You get it. You get to steal an opponent's valuable level 2. Generally, you know, when you consider the kind of level 2s that are actually seeing play, it's going to be things like, you know, Gachi Horror, a 4/5/1, big stats, very nice to steal. Or it's going to be, you know, perhaps a level 1 vanilla like Pojimu. That's a 2/5/2. That's a big thing to keep in the center as well. There's a lot of valuable things. You could steal a Rampart Elephant, for example. You could steal a Victor. These are all very valuable cards that you can steal from your opponent. So the fact that you're just, you know, sort of also circumventing the whole, well, I only get to play 2 cards per turn thing of Apprentice is also very nice. Now, of course, the payoff there is this one card is taking up a level 3 spot, a counter spot, and is pretty badly statted. And it's RNG reliant on when you actually play it, if you're even going to get value out of it. If you drive this going first, for example, that is peak. But I think that the benefits outweigh the downsides of this card. More often than not, you're going to be getting some solid value out of it, and it feels like a good inclusion in a Crime Lord deck at the very least, because of the typing. Okay, that's it for the Wonderverse Legends. Now let's talk about Vulneral, and this is sort of some of the most big boy legends, very, very, very hyped up ones. So, Magvarius. This is a Dragon Lord Fire, so the Dragon typing is relevant there for Creation Summon or Genesis Summon. So yes, this can be Genesis Summoned. This is a 7/7/3, massive stats. Biggest stats in the game, tied with a Vanilla. This is a Legendary, so you know, that's what you get for the stats. The counter uses the Flame Punisher ability. The Flame Punisher ability is when this card enters the field, choose one or more enemy units and allocate damage among them equal to the number of cards in your damage zone. So firstly, I know it says when this card enters the field, sort of the intention is very clear, you just do the thing. Yes, it's a wording mistake, I imagine they'll fix that in subsequent sets. But anyway, yeah, this is really powerful or really bad. If you counter check this in your first 2 to 3 damage, this is just a total waste of space. You lost your legend for no reason, and you're probably not even removing anything. If you drive or call this, like with 7 or 8 damage, you're getting a 7/7/3, and you're probably board wiping your opponent. So it's a high variance legendary. And that's sort of the cost you have to pay for such a powerful effect, because when Magvarius goes off, Magvarius goes off. This is a very powerful card. The potential for use is still, you know, it is deck dependent. I would say in a Genesis Summon deck, this is an absolute no-brainer. This is one of the few times you would just go, yep, it's in, it's in. Captain Liberty is another instance. Most of the time you can just go, yep, it's in. It's a really good card. The same is true for Magvarius in Genesis Summon and in a lot of Vulneral decks. You can pretty confidently just go, yeah, it's in. It's really good. It is high variance though, and there is a solid argument to be playing a different card instead of it if you are not a fan of variance. Next, we've got Blaster Vortex, and for some reason Blaster Vortex. So this is you set it and you play it when an enemy unit attacks, not ruler. Destroy all enemy units in the center line, except the center line in the front row. So I think this is worded a little weirdly. I believe it means in one row, destroy all the enemy units besides the center line. So if your opponent theoretically had a field with 2/2 center, this would only destroy the front 2. This would not destroy the back 2. Though of course we don't have a ruler that does anything like that just yet. It is a theoretical possibility. Anywho, this is really powerful. This is essentially just going to end your opponent's turn a lot of the time. If you've got something in the center, that's basically it. They're going to clear the center with their ruler or clear a side or something, and that's done. However, the downsides of this is, one, if you use this in Knight, you have to pay the cost. Much less of an issue in Apprentice, granted. The second issue, a bit more of a major one, is this is very prone to removal. It's very possible your opponent is just going to turn around and go, well, pop your set, Gachi Horror or something, because that is going to be a very major part of the meta. I think you don't want to forget that popping sets is going to be a thing. and you're usually not going to have too many on board. Maybe one, usually between 0 and 1 is like the most common from my experience, maybe 2. 2 is possible, 2 is reasonably likely, 3 is basically never going to happen. So your opponent's going to have like a 50-50 shot to just pop this and you get no value out of it. That is going to feel terrible. Additionally, if you counter check it, that is also going to feel terrible. Additionally, if you play this in an energy-based deck, sort of going back to that point, and you know, this might be all you get to do that turn. You set something with 2 energy open, 2+ energy open, and then just swing with ruler and pass turn to your opponent. Your opponent's going to sense something is up. That's probably a Blaster Vortex. So they're not going to play into it. They're going to do what they can to avoid getting absolutely destroyed by the Blaster Vortex. Perhaps they'll only attack with the ruler and then they'll go, okay, go. You've just wasted a whole turn doing nothing if they do that. This is a card that's pretty easy to play around. So you need to keep that in mind, keep that in consideration if you want to use this. But like with Magvarius, very, very powerful cards. This does not take up a counter slot. That is a point in its favor, as is true for all of the legendaries that do not take up a counter slot. That is something to keep in mind. Okay, on to the Yomajin legendaries, and the final 2. This is Captain Amiga. So this is a Ascended Being Warrior Hero. Warrior typing, kind of relevant. I wish this was worded like Magvarius, because then this would be really nice in the Genesis Summon deck, but it is what it is. This is a counter Overdrive. Overdrive is the counter. 5/5/3, big stats. Counter, the Overdrive is to just pop an enemy unit. This is good. This is boring, basic, strong. 5/5/3, reasonable stats. Not the easiest thing in the world to remove, not the easiest thing in the world to attack over, hits like a truck, and is going to just be completely deleting anything on the opponent's board when you see it. I think this is very, very powerful, very, very strong, not very flashy, but God, it gets the job done. It's really, really good. And finally, my personal favourite legendary, that will become clear when I do the rankings, is Oni, the Island Captain, Kinomiya Koga. This is a Oni the Island, Keyman, and Warrior. Again, same thing, I wish the Warrior thing. But anyway, the counter uses the card's Overdrive. It has Overdrive and Touchdown. You basically Vampiric Tutor. You stack your deck, and it's a 4/3/2. The value of this card is basically when you actually counter check it, you are able to instantly set up something like, for example, a Zap Zap Zap. You can set up a Captain Amiga, for example. You can set up a lot of things. If you see this as the final damage, you can set up your draw for the next turn. You can play this, and if you have a way to look at the top card of your deck and draw it or something, you can stack it that way. This is a card that I think will basically never be bad. It may not be good in a deck, and it may not be the optimal choice in a deck, but I don't think it will ever be bad in a deck. And I think as the game goes on, this is a card you're always going to be able to go back and go, this is something I can play. This is fundamentally such a powerful effect that it's pretty much always going to be playable, unless they just hard power crept it, which I really doubt they will. This is really good. Yeah, just so generic. It's a card, however, that is dependent on your deck. It is dependent on having something to set up, right? So if, for example, you're running a deck with pretty bad counters, if you actually check them, right? So things like All Things Must Die, or Absolute Barrier. These are counters that I'm just going to put to the discard pile. This is a much lower value card because you're not going to play those. You're just stacking something to heal a damage, like whatever. If, however, you're playing a deck with lots of things like Zap Zap Zap, or Buster Arm, or Destiny Sword, which are going to be hard removing things or dealing a lot of damage to stuff, this is a lot more valuable because now you're able to set up disruption on your opponent's turn and really mess them up. Either way, this card is fantastic, and now let's get into my top 3 to finish off this really, really long video. So in third place, I am going to put Captain Amiga. I think this card is really, really good. And is always giving you value, and popping anything is just so much better than just dealing damage to something. This is good at all stages of the game, outside of very, very first turn going first. As long as your opponent has something on board, you're getting value out of this. It is a relatively low variance unit, and fundamentally it's still a 3 credit that you can clear a center and then bash face with. Very, very strong. In second place, I'm going to be putting Captain Liberty. This card is so generic in its utility and so useful. Having a 4/2 defender is just so nice. It's just so good, and you're always able to bring it back as long as you hit counters, which you're probably going to. This is a card that will probably be worse in decks that when we start to see the counter limits decreasing, but whatever. At the moment, it's really good. Finally, my number 1 legendary is, unsurprisingly, Kinomiya Koga. I think this card is just so strong, and I'm such a fan of the effect, and I cannot wait to be using this index 5 years from now, because the effect is just so versatile. Okay, that's it for this video today, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like on the video. Let me know in the comment section what your top 3 legendaries are, and I will see you guys in the next video. Cheers.